Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 6, where we will be talking to Debbie Gerbec and learn how she developed the mastery of coaching as her craft. Debbie Gerbec is a professional life coach specializing in helping people to find their inspiration. After decades of working in an unfulfilling career, Debbie decided it was time to discover her own passions and turn them into a career. Working through a deep process with a life coach, Debbie developed her inspiration based on her lifelong love for helping people to achieve their dreams and goals. After completing a rigorous demand of IPEC coaching certifications, she has the tools to bring others into their self-discovery journey. Using empathy, intuition, and humor, she has since coached and companioned many people in similar situations. To find out more about Debbie, she can be reached at secondhalftransitions.com. Hello and welcome to Debbie.
Hi, Niranjan. Thank you so much for having me on today.
It was a pleasure. I'm looking forward to our exciting conversation about your changes and going into coaching. So tell me a little bit who you are, and I know we read your bio, and what is it that defines Debbie to be Debbie? Who are you?
Wow, what an ethereal question. Who is Debbie? Debbie is someone who has had a lifelong journey doing lots of different things. And I finally found my passion. And the passion actually was just on my front porch. It was who I've been my entire life, and I didn't know it. When I discovered this passion, looking back on my childhood and all the years of living, it was just like, well, this is obvious. You know, this is who I am.
Yes.
And so I was able to discover who I was and turn it into a career. And so my mission now is to be able to provide other people the same experience or a similar experience that I had. People who are in a transition in that they're not sure what they want to do. I mean, I help all sorts of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I experienced this myself. And so I want to pass on my experience to others and help them as well.
What was the aha moment, and what was the moment that you had? You had mentioned that there was a moment when you was on your porch and that you had maybe a self-discovery piece, something that nudged you and provoked you to look at and really be reflective in your own life. What was that moment for you?
Well, it wasn't exactly a moment. As I mentioned, I've had several careers. So I thought that this last career was it. I'm a proofreader, editor. I love proofreading. So that's what I do also. But so I had been a freelancer in another field before that, struggling mightily. I was a single mom, and I just, I hate to say failure, because everything is a learning experience, and you take what happens and learn from it, which is what I did. However, I wasn't able to survive as that. So I discovered that I was good at proofreading, and I got a few freelance jobs doing.
Just 1 second, Debbie. Sorry. You're either touching a mic or your computer or something, and I can hear a bit of, maybe it's your computer because you're not touching your mic. Maybe
I was touching my computer. I
can hear that.
Feeling it. Oh. Oh my God, disaster. Little piece at a time.
Do you want to just start again?
This isn't bothering you, is it? Oh my God. God. All right. Sitting on my hands. No, I'm not.
No.
By the way, when I said I looked out my front porch, first of all, I don't have a porch. I live in the city. Second of all, when I said that the answer was on my front porch, meaning it was just right in front of me, that I am doing what I love to do, and I've been doing it my whole life. Yes. So it wasn't a literal thing.
Well, it was metaphorical. Yeah.
It was metaphorical. And so
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I was miserable. That's what I was about to say, that I was miserable doing this god-awful proofreading job. And so I was looking elsewhere, and I had hired a coach myself. So that's what I was about to go into. So we can do that again.
So, where did we leave off? So you was going to define, so you can add that piece in there if you like, that it's more of a metaphorical phrase that you used of being on your front porch.
We're starting this one over again?
We can go just from that piece. So I can go, Debbie, you'd mentioned about a change or a reflective piece that you had discovered. Was that this? So Debbie, you had mentioned earlier about having a moment or having been reflective on your front porch. What was that process look like, and how did you come to that stage?
It was a gradual thing. I had several careers, and I was struggling as a freelancer. I was a single mom, and I just wasn't making it. I wasn't making enough money to survive. And so I've always been interested in proofreading and editing. And so I began a career in that. And after I had been struggling for so long, I was hired full time, and I thought I had made it. I thought, wow, I don't have to go on job interviews anymore. I don't have to search for another career. I made it. I have benefits and an amazing salary. And I thought, this is it. I'm no longer struggling. Mm-hmm. And so I was so happy for a while until I wasn't. After about 7 or 8 years, I felt, I started to get depressed. And it was because I was so bored. This job was so just sucking the soul out of my existence. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I began to reach out. I knew that I needed a change. I knew that I didn't want to be in this job the rest of my life. I would die. And there had to be something more than this. There just had to be. Mm-hmm. I'm not a depressive person. I am a happy person. And generally happy. Yeah. I just felt like if I stayed here, I will just go downhill. Mm-hmm. So I reached out. I thought, I either need a therapist or a coach, a life coach, somebody that could help me to find me, because mm-hmm. I didn't have any passions. I had many interests, but nothing really that was so soul fulfilling on a regular basis. So that's what I wanted to find. I wanted to find my passion. Nice. And so I hired a life coach.
Great.
And through the process, I discovered that I've always helped people, and I've always loved listening to people's stories, and I've always championed people. I was my family's cheerleader from day one. And that's what I love to do. And that is me. That is me. So I discovered that coaching was what it was going to be. And that's what I was talking about on my front porch. That was a metaphor for, it was just right in front of me.
Yes.
And so, those are the types of things that I want to help people to discover also, that in fact, just sometimes you think back in your life, I played piano all my life. I was in musicals, and I love that. And then I just stopped doing it because, life happens and you go to college and you just kind of stop doing some things. But they're there within you, and they're there in your soul. And so sometimes if you rediscover things that you used to love, then you enter into these new passions in a more mature way because you've had life to deal with it. So those are the types of things that I love helping people discover.
And that's great that the way you expressed it and the way you kind of reflected over your life of doing certain things that you had passion for and you really enjoyed. And then you realized they slowly started leaving your life. You didn't entertain them anymore. You went to college and you didn't play the piano anymore. You did things and maybe you weren't engrossed in other people's lives or stories to be able to really capture that. But yet you've kind of come full circle. And I think that's an innate thing that we do as we get older, is become more reflective of all the things that we've enjoyed and done, and then slowly tap into it and really, I guess, rediscover it in a whole new life. Right? I think that's a beautiful way. So congrats to you. That's a big that's a big process to be able to be so reflective and so vulnerable, right? Leaving a career of 7-8 years and what you thought was your passion is a courageous thing to do. It's a courageous thing to do.
Yes, courageous is probably the word, because I don't know. I lead with my heart.
Yes.
And I didn't want to take the time to reflect whether it was a smart thing or not a smart thing. I just wanted to do it. And in fact, I just make things work. You just make things work. You just do it. Just do it. If it doesn't work out, okay.
Right.
You just have to take the chance. And so that's what I decided to do.
Good for you. Good for you. And it's also a blessing for not only you, but all the clients that you're supporting and leading, right?
Yes. Some people aren't comfortable doing that, though. It's just who you are, you are inside. So that's just me. I mean, I can't push somebody to do that if they don't want to do that. That's just me. I just have always been a person to just take that chance. Absolutely.
But I think it's also really interesting to see the characteristics that you bring to the table, which we're going to talk about now, because I want you to share, because we've had a few conversations over the last little while, and I've recognized your humor and your candidness and your flow and your freedom, so to speak, in how you present yourself. And just through conversations, I think those are real gems that make Debbie Debbie, and really attributes that really define you in your purpose to support other people on that metaphorical piece of what is on their porch. What are the diamonds that they have in their backyard already? So it's to be able to go in and shine those and really dig for them a little bit. They're not going to come up real easy. So they're going to dig. So I think if you would like to share, what do you feel are some of the other attributes or skill sets or type of personality that you feel you have that can really support in coaching people?
number one is curiosity. Um, Even in our training, they enforce curiosity. And not enforce, but it's just, they would say, be curious. And
Yes.
I am. I love hearing people's stories. I think I mentioned that before. I love finding out what people are all about. I'm just in awe. Wow, how great. Like I'm so excited by what people are all about. So for me, that's number one.
Yes.
I just want to hear people's stories. Number two, I do know that I have a gift of empathy. I we talk about getting inside the sandbox. It's hard not to, and that means stepping in with them while they're going through something. It's hard. It's hard not to get emotional. It's hard not to feel what somebody's feeling if they're going through a hard time.
Sure.
So I can just almost feel what they're feeling.
Yes.
And, understand what they're going through. And I mean, I think that's why I just spend so much time crying every night when I'm watching the news these days.
Oh my goodness.
It's just, or when I walk around the neighborhood and see all the closed stores that I once used to go to. And it's just, I just feel deeply about that. So anyway, so empathy is my best trait, I think.
That's an interesting perspective of how you talked about really being on the journey with the individual and really exposing that experience and really feeling it. So I can only imagine how challenging it is for you to experience your day-to-day life. Yeah, that's pretty intense.
I had sort of the story isn't funny, but I don't know if we'll be using this in any way at all.
That's fine.
But at the end of our training, in order to pass, you had to do a 30-minute coaching session with somebody that you had, your peer coach, somebody you had already coached. And I just was so nervous about it. I just was scared to death. And it came time for our call. And I didn't know what she was going to talk about. And I went through the steps of, how we coach. And she threw me so off guard with her story. It was amazing. It was just something about how her best friend was shot and killed when she was a young girl, and she wants to get in touch with his sister. And I was like, oh my God. I said, stop, please stop. I can't do this.
Wow.
So, sometimes it just catches you off guard.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. It's quite a lesson for a first timer.
Yeah. I was like, can we do something a little lighter, please?
Yes. And I guess, you have to feel what works for you in terms of your skill set and your style of interaction and engagement with people, right? So I think that's pretty interesting. So with that, you talked about wanting to walk other people through their own passions and find their passions and really look at life with fulfillment. How has that process been while working with other individuals for you? So the intentions of your coaching practice.
Everything is a learning experience. So I learned from every single person that I talk to because of this curiosity. Yeah. It's almost like being a child. I mean, of course I'm not a child, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like learning about everything and everybody.
Sure.
So for me, the process has been fascinating, and joyful when I see their progress and I see how happy they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best feeling in the whole world, to
Yeah.
know that I have helped at least one person at a time.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's what's fulfilling.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's almost like you're nurturing somebody else through that process. And I wonder if it brings back memories for you of raising your child. Because in essence, the individual is coming back to you to unravel or uncover something that they're not uncertain to. So you have to walk them and nurture that behavior and pattern. Have you seen that as a pattern in your practice?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to answer this. This is off the record. Um, my experience raising my daughter was difficult.
Yeah.
I was a different person then. I hadn't fully matured,
Yeah.
and she was a little challenging. She still is challenging. She's a great kid. Well, she's 26 now, but it was a struggle because I was a single mom starting from when she was 5,
Sure.
and she was a little combative.
Yeah.
In utero, and she came out combative. So I had a hard time. I had a really hard time. I really didn't come into my own until she was like in high school, so it was a difficult time. So that's why I didn't really want to talk about that. I really didn't have anything worthy to say.
Okay. So let me think. Well, how can we continue that? So you could put maybe, and I don't know, I'm not putting words in your mouth, maybe something on the lines of is a nurturing experience for you to guide and lead people through that unraveling or finding that purpose, and then bring it back to that's what brings you joy, and that's why you do what you do.
Before we start, my cat's going ballistic and distracting me. You are so cute. You are just so cute, but you're making me crazy. So many distractions, but I think this is going really well. What do you think?
I do. I do like it. I think we're good.
Okay. I really have no idea what I'm going to say, so I may end up babbling. Okay. I want to be authentic. Let me try something here.
You could mention a little bit of it just to kind of capture what I said, and then bring it back to where you feel most comfortable about talking your passions and why you're doing what you're doing. If you're not comfortable, then that's fine. We'll just leave it and we'll just continue. Is that okay?
Okay.
Do that? Okay.
I'm sorry to make this so difficult for you.
No. I'm just trying to think where we left off, so what that string's going to look like.
Well, I mean, I think bringing my daughter into it, that just threw me off guard because I really have nothing to say about that.
Okay.
I mean, I love her dearly. It's just really been difficult, and then I met my now husband, and that was a huge problem when she was 15. And
okay. All right. So let's go here.
Okay.
So Debbie, we recognize that nurturing other people through their journey to identify and support them through their passion is key. So what is it Debbie does for her to nurture your passion and to get you through being so empathetic, especially when you're coaching others, and being so empathetic as who you are as an individual? What does that look like?
I just think it's just so interesting because Because as I said, when I talk to people and I learn about them, I apply sometimes, not really on purpose, it just kind of happens. I apply what I learned from them to what my own experience was as a child, let's say, or my teen years, or my adult years, or my years as a mother. Just through the years, I apply what they say and kind of see how it fits in with my own life. And it's just really interesting. So because you're learning so much, you're finding out so much more about yourself in relation to other people. Now, I'm not comparing.
Right.
I'm not comparing. That might have sounded like I was comparing. No, I'm not comparing. I'm just seeing where I fit in with what they're going through also. It's just, I'm not sure if that's making sense.
It does.
It's just fascinating. And so I learn more and more and more and more about myself every time I talk to somebody.
Can you identify one thing maybe from the first call that you had as your certification process, or after that, one thing that you had experienced and had a moment, and let's start that again. Can you share an experience or a conversation, be it from the first experience you had during that coaching piece, or an experience during coaching your clients where you had a story, where it was a reflective piece and you innately reflected on yourself and that changed your life, even if it was only a little bit or if it was a lot? Can you remember what that piece was?
That's a big question.
And I know that's a profound question, but in the same token, it could be, what we know in life is sometimes it's the smallest things that have the greatest impact. A smile from a passerby, somebody who leaves the door open for you as you walk through. The smallest things can have greater impact on who you are and how you present yourself to the world.
I'm thinking of things, but they lead back to me, and
yes,
but that's not what you mean, because like the only thing I can think of is how I help somebody to take the job that he was unsure of, just basic stuff. Like through my process, I help somebody do that. Like, I don't want to come off that way.
No.
In this question. The question is deeper. And so I'm just drawing a blank.
The question is, so you had an interaction and an engagement with somebody and they did something in their life, be it you coached them there or they did it innately, doesn't really matter. But something that they did changed in their life.
Oh, sure.
Something that they did impacted your life. Or you ended up looking at life in that lens.
I totally get what you're saying. And I'm just drawing a blank. So I'm trying to.
Do you want to go back to that conversation about that first coaching session you had? Maybe recognizing that life doesn't have to be as difficult and as challenging, or being grateful for where you are because you hadn't experienced that.
It taught me, I can go back to this, but we're just having conversation now.
Yeah.
That was I'm touching the computer again. That was a profound time. I mean, I laughed about it because I just was so surprised by my reaction. And she was so surprised that I stopped. Like, to her, that was just what happened to her. She was over it, over it, but she was shocked by my reaction.
Yeah.
So I did learn a lot from that, not to step into the box. I was younger and, I knew less then. And that was just one of those times that you just have to step away and not allow yourself. So in fact, yeah, no, that was a great suggestion, Ranjan. I totally did, because I also have a difficult sister. It helped me to not get so involved with her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to step aside. I'm able to just be matter of fact when I need to be.
So would it make sense by framing the response something on the lines of being able to use the skills and the education that you have from the coaching certification, and recognizing what that sandbox is, and recognizing where your boundaries lie? So
Mm.
you can be empathetic in the right space for you, and that'll shade and shift all areas of your life, from your personal life to your client's life, so you understand your boundaries, and that's a skill set in itself.
Yes, very well said. Thank you. Yeah, I think I can go with this.
All right.
Can you ask the question again?
No. Okay. um, okay. So Debbie, with you doing all this coaching for yourself and for other people, is there an experience or a moment or something you've been able to identify where you have, or a tool that you've identified that you can use for you through an experience of either coaching somebody else or having gone through the coaching program?
Absolutely. And in fact, the story that I talked about earlier, my final recording that didn't go so well on the first take, I was so shocked by her story, and she was surprised by my reaction, and that taught me a lot. And so it taught me to just step aside, not get in the sandbox with somebody, not be so emotionally entangled with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that's exactly what happened. And as a coach, you do not want that to happen.
Right.
You have to take care of yourself. You have to set boundaries for yourself.
Yes.
And in so doing, that gives your client a little more confidence in
Yes.
you. If they see you falling apart,
Absolutely.
that's not so great. So that particular moment taught me a whole lot. And I have since learned to set my boundaries, not only with coaching, but in other areas of my life as well. With my daughter, my sister, just some difficult discussions I've had with them, I am able to not lose myself.
Yes.
And I think it all stemmed from that moment. Actually, that was pretty
beautiful.
big.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's like you said, it's all a learning experience. Every single experience we have, regardless whether it's a client or whether it's a relative or a family member or the guy next door, it doesn't matter. It's the lens in which we look at it,
Yes.
and what we do as with using the skills and experiences that we have of how to respond, whether it's a default response reaction or whether it's a really authentic and nurtured response. So I think those are really key things through coaching. And it sounds like you've been able to work through and build some resilience and build your own toolkit that's unique for you, with your humor and your candid and your laughter, I think is really key. So you can support clients on their journey to find their passion. So I love that.
Thank you.
I love that.
One of my favorite statements along those lines is you cannot make a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That makes so much sense. I wish I didn't do that. That was a huge mistake. I was a failure. Those are all negative statements. So that is in relation to the call that I was, the recording that I thought I had failed.
Yes.
And absolutely not. It wasn't a mistake. It actually was a lifelong learning experience that I didn't know at the time.
Yes.
So every time we feel we've made a mistake, it's not a mistake. If you reframe it as a learning experience, everything's an opportunity. It will help you to turn it into a positive experience.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's one of those new lenses I believe people need to wear to be able to look at it as a learning experience rather than looking at life in a state of victimhood.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think that's so key. And no doubt you've kind of experienced that on both ends of the scale. I mean, you shared very early on about your own experience and how you was looking for more, something more meaningful, something more purposeful. And I think, it's an interesting process. Life will bring us challenges and life will bring us experiences that we often maybe mitigate and just brush under the table because it's just default behavior and how we're conditioned to eat, sleep, breathe, and live. But it's, like I've said to you, it's a very courageous journey to be able to go inward and recognize and coach yourself on getting more out of life from second half transitions. Right?
Yes. That's one of the benefits of being a coach, by the way. I get to help myself.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we all do. Ultimately, we all do. But I think coaching is perhaps known to do it a little bit more.
Right.
Maybe. Well, Debbie, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Narendran. This was fun.
It was fun. And thank you so much for sharing. I recognize it's sometimes not easy to be as transparent and open and, vulnerable with certain situations and experiences that you've shared on the call today. So I want to honor you that and say thank you for doing that. So I look forward to our continued conversation, maybe sometime later. So thank you
Definitely.
again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.